Diplomatic pressures, expensive ticket, and players block out from the weather. This year's World Cup was held in the United States and turned out to be a tournament riddled with scandals. In the 2018 vote, the United States beat Morocco by a margin of 2-1 to win the right to host the 2026 World Cup. When FIFA designed this tournament, which will feature 48 participating countries for the first time, it was looking for a country with more modern and technologically advanced stadiums. However, the solution they arrived at was criticized by some observers. They argued that FIFA now prioritizes money over soccer. Choosing the United States, the world's most powerful advertising and broadcasting market, brought people together in this view. Of course, this was not as significant as the statements Trump made before the vote. In 2018, Trump said in a post on X that it would be a shame not to select the US to host the World Cup. Naturally, this had also caught the attention of the 211 members participating in the vote. In this race, soccer had been set aside and diplomatic power had come into play. In fact, they didn't stop at just posting this message, they went even further. The US Supreme Court had issued a ruling imposing travel restrictions on Muslim-majority countries. The existence of this ruling was confusing for many members. However, in a letter to Infantino, Trump had explicitly promised that these restrictions would be extended for the duration of the World Cup. To what extent this promise was kept is the subject of the later parts of this video. However, the warnings issued by official US agencies to fans prior to the tournament provide us with important clues on this matter. Setting diplomatic issues aside, let's take a look at what fans who managed to enter the US experienced. Imagine you're a fan supporting World Cup champion Spain. If you were planning to watch all the matches at the stadiums, a basic calculation shows you'd have to spend $1,100 on airfare. That's because you'd first have to fly from Atlanta to Guadalajara, then travel in sequence to Los Angeles, Dallas, back to Los Angeles, back to Dallas, and finally to New York for the final match. For comparison, let's do the same calculation for Argentina, the 2022 World Cup champion. At the tournament held in Qatar, you didn't even need to buy a plane ticket. That expense was exactly zero. What about Russia in 2018? How did it work in the world's largest country by land area? In 2018, fans with match tickets in Russia were offered free train rides. Thanks to a system set up specifically for the World Cup, fans who showed their match tickets could ride the trains for free. Of course, this also included local public transportation. So, what do you think was the biggest scandal of the 2026 World Cup? Ticket prices, Infantino's unfair behavior, or the strangest one, something that had only been seen once before in history? The US faced Bosnia and Herzegovina in its final 32 match. During the game, US forward Balogun received a red card. Players who receive a red card in World Cup matches are not allowed to play in the next match. That's a clear rule. Commentators were debating that, according to FIFA's disciplinary code, Balogun should have received a suspension of at least 2 matches for a serious foul endangering the safety of an opponent. Right in the middle of these discussions, Infantino's phone rang. It was Donald Trump calling. He requested that the 1-match suspension imposed on Balogun be reconsidered. FIFA, however, postponed the suspension based solely on Article 27 without providing any justification. This had been done previously for Ronaldo, but that occurred during the World Cup qualifying stage, and the rationale given was that Ronaldo had not yet received any cards in international matches. Now, however, the situation was different. Trump practically thanked FIFA, saying it had corrected a major mistake. On the other hand, UEFA, the governing body of European soccer, reacted to the decision and expressed its astonishment. The former FIFA president stated, "Soccer should never become a playground for political power." While Trump confirmed the phone call, Infantino maintained that Trump had no influence on the decision. The closeness between Trump and Infantino, which wasn't limited to this single incident, was criticized by neutral organizations as a departure from political independence. In fact, FIFA has the authority to punish players for content containing political messages. Of course, we'll also share the stories of players, fans, and referees who struggled to travel to the United States, the world's strictest country when it comes to visas. But first, let's take a quick look at what happened on the field. We've all watched tournaments before and are used to matches being played in the evening. However, if you noticed, most matches in this tournament were played during the day. Even during the World Cup final, the sun hadn't set yet. Let's speculate on why this was the case. Why was the final match of the world's biggest tournament played during the day, which is so unusual? The answer is very simple: money. Think about that match everyone was getting ready to watch. Maybe you're not Spanish or Argentine, but watching this grand final with your friends is a fantastic event. If you were a soccer fan in the Americas, this event would take place around 3 p.m. and turn into a perfect Sunday activity. In Europe, however, that time is around 9 p.m., so you wouldn't have to interrupt your sleep or wake up early. In a scenario where the match were scheduled for 9 p.m. in the Americas, a Spaniard would have had to set an alarm for 3 a.m. and wake up from sleep. If we consider that many potential viewers wouldn't wake up at 3 a.m. to watch, just imagine how much the sponsorship and broadcast revenue from this match, which the whole world follows, would drop. Optimistic FIFA officials might explain this as making the match available at a time convenient for everyone, but the spirit of soccer and established habits will be unforgiving on this matter. Of course, habits aren't the only issue. Think back to your childhood. You go outside at 3 p.m. to play a game with your friends. When you get home, your mom scolds you. She tells you how unhealthy it is. But what if you're a professional soccer player and you have to take the field at 3 p.m.? It's the hottest months of the year, the hottest hours of the day. You're forced to be on the field at that hour because of fears that advertising revenue might drop. Researchers highlighted this issue months before the tournament began. They warned that factors like humidity and the angle of the sun could directly affect the player's health. So what did FIFA do? They added water breaks lasting 2 to 3 minutes in each half. And during those 2 to 3 minutes, commercials were aired. Like everything else, the water breaks were a very clever commercial move by FIFA. However, critics have always debated whether FIFA prioritizes its commercial broadcasting needs over health risks. While moves were being made on one side that endangered player health to line pockets, on the other side of the country, referees and players set to make history were stranded at the border. With the tournament just around the corner, warnings issued by US government agencies indicated that visitors to the World Cup could face risks such as arbitrary detention and deportation. While Russia provided free tickets to visitors in 2018, in 2026, government officials were scaring visitors with the threat of detention. It was reported that people from African, Middle Eastern, and Asian countries were being turned away. There were even cases where individuals with valid visas were not allowed into the country. Omar Artan, the Somali referee set to make history by officiating his first World Cup match, was denied entry at the border crossing due to security concerns. In other words, not only fans but even referees were unable to participate in the tournament for this reason. While a soccer player was questioned for hours at another customs checkpoint, Ghanaian player Partey, who was unable to enter through the Canadian customs checkpoint, missed his first match. Iraqi forward Hussein was questioned at the airport for a full 7 hours. In other words, the scandals just kept coming. Everyone was reminding Trump of the promise he had made to Infantino. France, on the other hand, had arrived in the US without any issues, but statistically speaking, it was almost certain they wouldn't win the championship. You can access that video we prepared during the very first days of the tournament via the cards below. Don't forget to subscribe for more soccer content and give the video a like. Who knows, maybe the next video will be about the World Cup surprise teams.